what I like. That's what I need. I'm feeling fresh, don't need stress. I'm doing me. That's what I like. That's what I need. I'm way too blessed, don't need to stress about a thing. That's what I want.
Nice tap.
Embrace the flavor of life.
The way I see it is you've got two choices. You can either keep pretending like nothing bad's ever gonna happen to you, and then when it does, you're saying, uh-oh, or you can get ahead of what's coming so that when it does, not if, you're ready for it. And you're sitting pretty, sipping on Mai Tais next to the pool, working on that Caribbean suntan, because you got it covered. So folks, it's time for you to learn the truth about money. It's time for you to take back control of your money so that you are ready for what's about to happen. By doing that, you're setting yourself up for absolute success. No matter what comes your way, you're ready for it. And that's what I want for you, and I want to help you with that. So go to chrisnoggle.com and sign up for the Wealth Webinar. We do them every Wednesday at 1 p.m., and you need to be there because it's time.
For over 90 years, we've been crash testing our cars in the tireless pursuit of automotive safety. At Volvo, safety's been first since 1927. We've saved millions of lives with the invention of the three-point seatbelt in 1959. At Volvo, we've made driving safer for you and them. Visit safety.findlayvolvo.com to learn more.
So they say if you give a man a gun, he'll rob a bank. But if you give a man a bank, he'll rob everybody. The good news for you is Private Money Club runs solely on peer-to-peer relationships, which means no banks allowed. So finally, there's a community for real estate entrepreneurs where it is truly a win-win solution. This community is a place where you can connect with other lenders and other borrowers, and the end result's massive growth for you. You get to build your real estate empire, and you get to do it solving other people's problems. So if that sounds like a place you want to be, well then join us. Go to privatemoneyclub.com/Kelly. And if you want $500 off, just add the code Kelly500 and I'll knock $500 off the premier membership. We'll see you on the inside.
Welcome to the Kelly Cardenas podcast, where attitude is everything. On today's show, you're going to see me smile a lot, laugh a lot, because there's a lot of words that I'm going to use that have a lot of syllables, and sometimes I'm going to mess them up, but that's okay. And this friend, now my new friend, who came through a friend of mine, Paul Kite, and I was so blown away that he even introduced me to this incredible human being. But I'm honored to be able to have him, because as we talked before the show, before we were getting started, I asked, what is the titles, things like that. He said, I'm not a title guy. I'm not a hierarchy guy. I simply solve challenges. I help to break the rules, and where someone heard no before, I can give him a yes. But he also happens to be the top, I say this, he won't say it, but the top in the world interventional cardiologist, a Hartzler award-winning cardiologist. This guy is unbelievable and is going to bring so much wisdom, so much knowledge, but not just in the professional realm, about the personal journey that he's been able to go on and that he's looking to be able to go on that journey to better. So please welcome to the show. He won't let me call him doctor, but Mr. Bill Lombardi. Welcome to the show, my man.
Hey, Kelly, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I love your infectious energy. Should be a fun discussion today. So I'm ready to take the questioning and see where we go on this journey.
Well, I think on the journey part of it is understanding and understanding the levels, right? The levels at which you play at. You said to me that when you got done with school at U of U and when you did medical school at Tulane, you said, I got a boat, I'm going to go up, I'm going to be a small town doctor in Bellingham, Washington. And I joked and laughed and said, and you became the best one in the world. And then you said, whoa, whoa, whoa. What does it take to be the best that you possibly can be at your chosen craft?
There are a lot of, you can steal from a lot of people, right? Tom Brady talks about consistent discipline. We talked a little bit about Jordan and Kobe, which is just self-reflect on yourself. So to be the best, you have to be humble, because you have to accept you can get better. The second is don't compare yourself to anybody but yourself. Again, trying to chase best and chase perfection, you're going to fail. All you're trying to do is get a little bit better yourself and see where that goes to see how much you can get out of your talent. I think the last piece in that is getting coaching, which is you got to have people to come in and critique you, not tell you how wonderful you are, but tell you, these are the things you need to work on. And then the last one is this term that's, from Piers Eric Anderson, who wrote this book, Peak. It's purposeful practice, right? It's not going out and hitting 1,000 golf balls. It's going out and hitting a bunch of six irons, working on your leg. It's for me, it's going and saying, okay, here's a technique I don't know how to do. So where do I learn how to do it? How do I practice it so that when I've got to do it, I actually can execute it? And I think that kind of mental discipline and the ability to overcome the failures and learn from the failures and not dwell in the negativity, but really work on, I'm just going to get better and I'm just going to get better. And at every milepost, look back and go, okay, I don't care what people say I am. I don't care what I look like compared to other people. I know that I can do this thing better. I don't like failing. I don't like not being able to give a person an option. So what is the challenge? How do I go back, look through what people have done, and then solve that challenge in an effective way?
So let's go to the breaking the rules part, because this blew me away. Not only listen to your podcast, which is amazing. So if you haven't listened to The Journey to Better, you guys need to go and check out Dr. Bill. He won't let me call him that, but it's Dr. Bill Lombardi, and then it's The Journey to Better. But when you were talking about it, you were talking about breaking the rules, and the Hartzler Award that you won was based off a guy who literally went against the grain in every single thing. But that's not what we think as the general public. When I think of a doctor, when I think of a interventional cardiologist, I'm not thinking that you're breaking the rules. I'm thinking you're following every single one of them. Can you help us with this mentality?
Yeah. I was joking about it, right? People in medicine talk about the standard of care. Well, if you do the standard of care, the treatment for a heart attack is you lay in bed and recover from it, right? So Jeff Hartzler, the guy who developed it, was the first guy to, when somebody had a blocked artery in the heart causing a heart attack, he actually went in, put a wire and balloon across, and opened and returned blood flow to normal. That was his first big thing he did, which nobody had ever done in the world. When he did it, he's like, well, let's see what happens. And it wasn't like everybody goes, oh, that's amazing, let's all do that. It was, you're nuts. And so to innovate in medicine, you have to go against medicine. And so I always talk with people is you have to understand why. Why were we doing it this way? What is different now? How can I take those two things and come up with a solution? Understanding that at times that solution is going to harm people. And then you have to start working on risk calculus and how do I make it safer and how do I teach it? But if you don't keep pushing the envelope, if you don't keep working to do new things, then we'll have leeches doing bloodletting in medicine. And the funny part is physicians in general hate innovation because that means they have to learn to do something they don't know how to do. And nobody likes that. And so when you're an innovator like me, most of the time when you do something new, what everybody says, you shouldn't do that, right? When I started, I was a criminal, a murderer, then I was a zealot and crazy. And then I was passionate. And then I was thoughtful. And then I was really good. And then I won the Hartzler Award. Same attitude, same person, same way. I just got it because it worked. But along the way, a lot of the stuff we did didn't work. And our choice was to then stop everything and give up, or step back, critically evaluate, learn, adapt, and move forward. And that's not what most physicians want to do. They want to I go to medical school, I go to residency, I learn the rules, I come out, I get paid the same whether I do my job good or bad. I get paid the same whether I tell you what is my truth, which is what versus what might be the truth. And so that's what you get. And that's where a lot of the emotional toll for me has been is I've spent my career getting stabbed in the back. I mean, tongue in cheek, the award was given to me by people when I started who were the ones criticizing me, saying I shouldn't do it. And so, to be great requires grit and perseverance. There's a great Churchill quote, right? Which is, the hardest thing in the world is to stand up for what you believe is right when everyone around you tells you you're wrong, right? That takes courage. And that's kind of what, that's what greatness has to do.
Where did you develop that, or how can a person develop that? Because I think a lot of people that are listening right now would say, if I was called a murderer early on, that was the first stage, hey, I'm a murderer, then they say, this stuff, it isn't worth it. Maybe I'll go do something else that, is not going to cause as much friction. How can a person build that early on to get prepared? And how were you prepared to be able to go through that?
There are two pieces. I think I got it because I had a perfectionist father who I didn't get a compliment till I was 26 that didn't end in the word but. And so for me, it was always about you could do it better and you could always challenge and improve. The way you build it is you have to build resiliency in two ways. One, you have to go, I think it can be done better. I think I can push the envelope. I think I can go there. The second piece is you have to be humble enough to be, I was wrong. And the key in that is you have to be proven you're wrong, right? So there's this thing called cognitive dissonance, which is if you have a belief, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that go with it, but if you have a belief and I can prove your belief is wrong, most people will not accept that. And this is why cults exist, because they're just going to sit there and say, I don't believe you. And they will change their narrative to support their lie, because it's easier to accept your lie that you're comfortable with than a truth that you're not. And so what I found is medicine is full of a lot of cognitive dissonance. People are doing stuff because. So when people were accusing me of this and you go back and you look at what's going on, you're like, this isn't science. This isn't right and wrong. This is just, they couldn't do it. And they've equated that they couldn't means it can't. Well, that's not actually the case. And so for me, I've done lots of things that we don't do anymore because it ended up being dumb. And we proved it was dumb. But we didn't just look at it and say, well, that's stupid. We said, okay, let's try it. Let's play with it. Let's see what challenge or technical thing that it solves. Can we teach it? Is it safe? And then move forward. And it's just this ongoing critical self-evaluation, but making sure that you're being open to learning and being open to honesty, but also understanding why people do what they do and why they're stuck in the way they're stuck, and trying not to be that person.
Doc, you seem to have this, I'm going to say perfect, but you're going to say it's not perfect, but you seem to have this perfect mix of ego, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, ego and humility. And you don't generally see that. You see a person who, when they're the best at what they do, they have an ego that is in a positive way that pushes them towards perfection. But you also have this mix of being able to say, I did this. It didn't work. My bad. I'm going to move on from that. How have you developed that part? Because most people either have one or the other.
Yeah, I would say I probably developed it because I had a good community around me. I had, my brothers from another mother and my wife. I had people who in some ways were like-minded, but I would say had unconditional love for you, so they would hold you accountable. And that allowed you to stay, because you're right. I mean, your description of a lot of the people who led this change in medicine, you have to be incredibly confident. People die doing this stuff. You got to know what you're doing, and you got to be ready to manage it. The other part of that is it's incredibly humbling because people can get hurt and people die, and you've got to be thoughtful about that. And I'm not sure what the intrinsic piece is, but if you look, I mean, listen, Michael Jordan is actually a humble dude, right? He raised up 82 times and lost the game, right? Tiger Woods has missed an equal number of shots that were also amazing. And they didn't crumble when that didn't work out. They just said, okay, I've got to go back and do more work, or I've got to think differently, or how do I improve? And I think that's an important part, is when you become too confident, you stop critiquing to learn and be better. If you're too humble, you'll never take the risks to be great. And I have these 5 rules of life that I talk about. One of the rules is chance favors the prepared mind. And it comes from Louis Pasteur. And the reason that happens is lucky people are lucky because they have practiced and prepared to, when opportunity arises, they take it and it works. And they also don't care if they miss. The other one is, if you do not attempt to conquer, you never will, right? We were talking about this before we got on, right? Leaning into uncomfortableness is really hard for people, myself included. But if you don't lean into it, you're never going to get better. And so that becomes a big important thing, is you have to attempt to conquer even when you might fail.
So help me with this too, because when you're going through when you're going against the grain, did you start off going against the grain as hard as you go now, or is it a stair-step thing? Do you just try a little thing out and you're like, I'm a little bit of a maverick, or did you go straight to murderer? And when I use that term, if you just tuned in, you got to rewind. You got to scrub back. Rewinding is old school, but you got to scrub back, because when you said this, it hit me, because most of the time, the person who is going to make the change generally gets those kind of terms to them from the outside world. But Bill, were you doing it little by little and building up, like faith to faith, glory to glory, or did you just go all in on these?
No, I mean, the whole reason I got into what I was doing was I just wanted to be able to help patients that I couldn't help in my small town little practice. And I started doing things differently, and I looked at who was doing it really well and said, I'm going to mimic them, right? Just ignore what I learned and just go follow what the smart people do. And as I got better and better, I met some people that were really good. And then we got to sort of look at who was doing it well and realized, well, that's not going to work for what we're doing. We're going to have to go off on our own little way. And it's just incremental gains. You don't walk up and say, oh, I'm going to change the world. I'm just going to get a little bit better. I'm going to do a little bit of incremental gain. And then you realize, as you're incrementally gaining, that you're gaining a wider and wider separation. And then people view you as this maverick, and they see you as this, you're way outside the norm. But it wasn't like you just instantly were outside the norm. It was all these incremental gains led you to be an outlier. And so I don't think I went into just being this massive maverick. It just sort of got there. And then when you get there, you realize, if I'm going to make change, I'm just going to have to take this. And I've just got to have the courage in my faith. I've got to have courage in my data. I have to have courage in my values. And that means I'm going to be different. And being different means you're going to get treated. There's going to be a small group of people who want to get on the bus and are going to laud you, and you're going to be the Pied Piper. And there's going to be another group of people that are equally loud who want to take you apart and take you down because they don't want you to do something they couldn't do or can't do. And you just have to stay focused on you.
So, Doc, when you said before we started recording, you said that one of the procedure is through the wrist, and it's was it the wrist?
It's the wrist or the leg, small little holes. They're basically 2 millimeter holes.
Can you explain this? Because for the person who didn't go to medical school, although I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so things should be good. But for that person, because these parts that are normal to you are fascinating to us.
Okay. Effectively, what you do is all roads lead to the heart. So if you get an artery anywhere in the body, that'll take you to the heart. So we have little straws, little catheters, little hollow tubes that we can run from either your wrist or your leg or other places now. And we can get to the arteries that supply blood to the heart. And then I get to play a big video game. I have a machine, it's a TV screen that shows me the beating heart and shows me these basically like a roadmap, a bunch of little black lines, which are the arteries. And we have what are called guide wires, and they all have different properties, and they're the size of basically human hair. And you use your fingers to turn them. So you put a shape and you drive them across and down the road. Now, what I do fixing arteries that are completely blocked, you have to go maybe 4 inches where you don't know where the road is. So you have to figure out how to get from the starting point of the road to the ending point of the road, but you actually can't see the road. And if you get off the road, people can die. It's called a perforation. It's a tear in the vessel and it's bad stuff. So all of the things we've had to learn is how do we find ways without radar and sonar and AI, how do we find ways to stay on the road when we don't know where the road is? And so the problem in this video game is there's no do-overs, there's no replay, and when your player dies, they actually die.
So in that, let's talk about the dark side of perfectionism. Because when you just explained that part of it, it kind of puts into perspective. I mean, you have to be in that mind state to be in your profession in the first place. Because if you don't work towards being the best, then, in my profession, if I'm not the best on a certain day, and there's been times, maybe one in my life, Dr. Bill, maybe, but I apologize. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm sorry. Things didn't work out. I'm going to make it better.
Yep.
You don't have that.
Not
but
all the time.
what type of pressure does it put on a person? Say when you said that you didn't get a compliment from your pop till you're 26 years old, unless it ended in but. How does that impact a person long term and emotionally? Because I want you to be emotionally stable if you're going to go in on that video game on me or on my family.
Yeah. So first of all, what happens to a lot of physicians who do what I do is they don't do it because they don't want to take the risk. It's too emotional. And that's why people get told can't. They get told can't. It's not because it can't. It's because that person is afraid of the risk, that they don't know enough, they can't manage it, or they can't emotionally deal with it. The second piece is the dirty secret of medicine. Right now, 42% of cardiologists are burned out. The suicide rate is a factor of, it's like 2 to 4x the normal population. The divorce rate is higher. Drug and alcohol addiction rates are higher. And the reason is we don't know how to really emotionally deal with the fact that somebody came in off the street and isn't going to go home. And we don't talk about it. And that's one of the reasons I started the, drjourneytobetter.com is to start having these conversations. It's why, I've been blessed because I've gotten well known. I have a platform. And so instead of using my platform to just be a narcissist and keep getting more famous, I went through burnout. I got suicidal. I struggled because I didn't know how to deal with all this stuff. And I decided to say, you know what, I'm going to go public with this because I think other people are struggling with it. And they are. And for them to get better and for me to get better, we got to talk about it. But I mean, this stuff is, I was talking earlier, right? I've got a good friend it's a public story. This guy named Cody Pickett. He's a ex-Husky passing leader. Mike Penix is going to break them all this year. But Cody's a great guy. He got into a situation where I had to get involved and help take care of him. And Cody desperately wanted to thank me. So he wanted me to go to a football game with him. So unbeknownst to me, that means you get to go on the field, you get to meet the coach, you get to meet the AD. It's for me, it's a crazy experience having sat in like the third tier 5-yard line for my whole life. But I was telling Cody, like, I'm not friends with my patients. He's like, what do you mean? He said, Cody, you're 41. You have 3 kids. I now know your wife, Carly. If anything happens to you, it's my fault. And I have to own that. And the closer I am to you, the harder it is to do my job. At least for me. I mean, part of it at times is I try not to get to know people before I do this work because it just increases the emotional angst. And it's not that I don't want to be compassionate or that I don't want to be human. I know what it matters, but I also have to find some strategies to keep me present so that I'm not thinking about other things that might dissuade me from doing my job confidently and successfully. And there's only a couple of specialties in medicine that truly get what I do. And one is the cardiothoracic surgeons, the guys that do bypass surgery and replace heart valves and do an open surgery. They get it. The neurosurgeons a little bit, and a few vascular surgeons a little bit. And for the most part, everybody else, what they do isn't that high risk. But it's tough. And I think that's why I came out with my story and why I've tried to talk to people is this world is hard. And I want to help people get better. That's what my ethos is. More importantly, I want the competency of those around me to be raised up, because it's not about who's best in medicine. It's actually about who's worst. My dad was a commercial airline pilot, right? When was the last time you got a plane and said, well, I got to check the credentials of the pilot because he may not be that good. Like, if we flew airplanes like we do my job, there would be 3 commercial airline crashes a day. Soak on that one.
Doc, there was a turning point, and when we talked about the Hartzler Award that you won, which is for a sports fan, it's like that's like winning the Super Bowl, being the MVP of the league. In college, it's like the Heisman. But there was tears that really was a changing point for you.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Because I would think like, hey, you get the award, like, this is so great. You're crying. I look at you. You're in that, because the next award that you get, I'll probably be there because you're going to invite me. You know what I mean? Like, I'll be your guest of honor. I could be there with you. We did it. We did this together. I inspired you by being on the podcast. You know what I mean? And
I'm stoked.
And I look at you when you get your next award, and I see the tears, and I'm like, oh, he's emotional. But these tears really change things for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, the best story I can give to this is when they announced it. I was at a meeting called CTO Plus, right? And there's 1,000 people there, and the person doing it told me they want me to sit in the front row. My wife is at the meeting, standing in back with another good friend of mine who's been part of this process, Aaron Grantham. And so they announce it, standing ovation, everybody goes crazy, and I'm crying. And Aaron in the back of the room looks over at Erica, and Erica's crying. And everyone in the room's assumption is tears of joy. You are both so happy. And I've talked to my wife about this. Both of us had the exact same emotional response. How much this cost us, how hard this has been on our relationship, how hard this was on me and my job, how hard this was on our kids. It was the price for that award is why we were crying, not joy. And again, I say that publicly because I think it's really easy for people to go, oh, look how easy it was for them. Oh, look, they're wealthy, they're rich, look how high energy Kelly is, and his life's perfect, and he's always about the attitude, and his life must just be without any problems. And you're like, no way, man. Do you know how hard this is? I mean, I can't imagine how many days and hours you put into building a studio, putting the website together. The server crashed, the microphone didn't work, people are like, oh, that was a dumb story, you shouldn't do it. I mean, it's just, and that's where, I mean, there are tears of happiness, but it's also tears of sacrifice. And you just, not to get too philosophical, but, in Eastern philosophies and Buddhism, they talk about the middle path. And I think it's really important for people to recognize is the middle path is not you are constantly at peace and you're perfect and you're happy. The middle path is you have found balance between happiness and sadness. You have found balance between anger and joy. And what you have to get to is the goal is you're going to struggle one way or the other is when you get out of balance. And so inner peace is about finding balance. And that's why, when you talk about confident humility, that's the balance of greatness. Narcissists don't ever they may get sort of great, but they're really not great because, you could make fun of Allen Iverson and Randy Moss. They left talent on the table, right? They just did. It is. Jerry Rice, not nearly the talent, but man, he got everything out of it. But that's because he had it's not that guy didn't know he was great, but he was humble enough to I got to go work hard every day. It's Tom Brady, right? That consistent discipline. He's always trying to find the little micro difference. And so to me, I think that's a big piece in this is just accepting that when you see people with great joy, realize they've also probably had great suffering. And there's a quote, a wax prophetic for you that I really like. So in my counseling, one of the things I came upon was we often go, why did this happen to me? Right? Blame. Oh God, I failed. Or why did that person call me XYZ? Why did I say XYZ? Why did this happen to me? But you have to realize almost all of those failing negative moments in your life, they are what shape you into being a better person. So when you're in that moment, what you go is, why is this happening for me? What is my opportunity to learn from what's going on around me right now so that I can become that better version of myself?
Doc, why do people have to hit rock bottom to realize the things? One of my friends said the other day, in the eye of the storm is generally the calmest, but we always wait until rock bottom to actually make a change.
Well, there's several reasons for that. First of all, everybody's rock bottom is different, right? If you want to talk about alcoholism, right? Alcoholism may be I'm drinking 1 or 2 bottles a night, going to bed, going to work, not getting arrested. That may be a form of alcoholism. Alcoholism may be you're getting up at 2 a.m, you're drinking a fifth of scotch, you're drinking at work, you get arrested for a DUI, and that still may not be rock bottom. Rock bottom may be I lost my job, lost my wife. Everybody talks about rock bottom because everybody's rock bottom is different. Because without running into the bottom, you're not going to see a need to change, right? There's a wonderful quote in business. everyone will be promoted to their level of incompetence. And the reason that occurs is you either have an innate ability to get to an X level, but you're always going to get promoted one level past because you could do that job so well. But then when you get promoted to that job where your innate talent can't do it, you're going to fail. There's another group of people who at each step of the rung realize that their skill set doesn't translate to the next level. So they have a growth mindset and they prepare themselves with a new set of skills to succeed at the next level. And they will do that until they stop changing. And because of neurobiology, as we get older, change gets harder and harder. You're not as plastic in your brain. You don't have the energy level. Your risk tolerances change. So what you have to sort of do is prepare that you're going to get promoted to your level of incompetence, and you have to make a decision. Maybe I've done enough, and I'm going to take what I've got and call it good, or I'm going to take the risk and get promoted. And for me, my whole world in the last couple of years has changed, which is I don't have a goal anymore. I've spent my whole life in competition, my whole life in trying, I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to run a 350 marathon. I'm going to do 300 cases. I'm going to have a 90% success rate. I'm going to be faculty at this meeting. I'm going to do whatever. I've got this objective. And I can't do that anymore because I'm going to fail at it. And the other is, I'll be happy when. And then I get there and you're not happy. So the problem isn't the goal. The problem is I need to be happy with the process. Mm-hmm. And so right now, I'm just happy with the journey. The best example I can give of this, I was fly fishing with a friend of mine, Rob Federici, great dude, ahead of me on the journey. And we were in a fly fishing trip in Alaska. And I actually was catching the most fish. But it wasn't the amount I wanted to catch. The trip wasn't going the way I wanted. And I was really sort of upset while we're tenting in Katmai, sleeping with bears, fly fishing in a river with just the four of us in the middle of nowhere. And finally, Fed looks over and goes, dude, look up. I look up, he goes, what do you see? I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. It's amazing. Yeah. Stop worrying about catching fish. Enjoy the scenery, work on your casting, and who cares? Enjoy that. That's why you're here. You're not here to catch fish. And that struck me so profoundly. And I've done that on every fishing trip since, and I've started to do that in my life, which is if I'm out on a run and I'm not feeling it, I'll stop and I'll look at the beautiful trees or the sun or the sky, or I'll enjoy the sound of the rain, and then I'll start running again. And I don't care about the time. So what? I ran slower than I ran yesterday. That's okay. I'm out running. Enjoy that process. And that's really something I'm focused on in my therapy and my personal self-worth is I really just want to serve and not worry about the result.
So, Doc, help me with this too, because when we're looking at, when we're looking at that process, and we're looking at a person that's in it right now. When I say in it, let's go to the alcohol side.
Yeah.
Okay. They're in that place.
Yep.
And they're struggling with it and battling with it right now. They're in the midst.
Yep.
How does a person, the piece of advice that we could give, maybe we're outside of it. I'm not struggling with it right now. I had my mom struggle with it. I had my dad struggle with it. We had it in our family all over the place. To the person that's in it, that's drinking to be able to go to work right now.
Yep.
How do we, what does that person do?
I think what you have to accept is, why are you drinking? And you're drinking because you're medicating yourself because you don't love yourself. So for that person to succeed, the first thing they have to say is, I have a problem. Number two, they have to get help. And the help is not quitting drinking. That will be a byproduct. The help is, why do you not love yourself? Why are you medicating yourself? How do you get coaching to leave your hell? And that's super hard. And you're probably not going to be able to do it on the loan. And you're going to have recidivism if you're not able to look at yourself and say, this is on me. I don't like me. I need to find a new version of me. And as I build that new version of me, the addiction will go away because I won't need it to medicate away my self-loathing. And I think that's, I mean, for me, when I quit drinking and had to go through this process, I was if I wasn't on call, never drank on call, thank God, I never drank and drive, but I would come home from work and I would drink, 1-2 bottles of wine every night. And it's because I hated myself, because my job was tearing me apart, because every case I do is super hard and somebody turned down and somebody can die. And that became my medication to make me feel numb rather than deal with the emotions that were really happening. And, this is public, it's on my podcast. So when my wife confronted me and said, I'm done, you got to quit drinking, we're going to marriage counseling, you're an asshole. That was September of 21. So I quit drinking, I started exercising, I started eating better. I got marriage counseling, I got in personal counseling, but it actually got worse, because the first part for everybody in this process is you want to blame everybody else. You want to blame anything you can. And so you have rock bottom number one is you get confronted and you decide, I'm going to try and make a change. That almost always leads to rock bottom number two, which is where you run out of people to blame and realize it's all on you. And you get to decide, do I want to become a different person? And what do I want that person to look like? And what responsibility and accountability am I going to take for that? Because it's all on me. Or you're going to go back, fall back into the pit and get worse. And, that for me, that was in December. I'd done a run. I was doing all this stuff. I stopped at a Starbucks near my house. I'm walking up the hill back to my house. And my mindset was, my wife would be happier if I just jumped in front of the next bus and died. And I was like, I think I'd probably be happier if I just didn't have to confront this stuff, because I can't emotionally handle it. I'm just driving. I don't know how to deal with this. And I don't know how to deal with it, and it's all on me. And, fortunately I had counseling that morning, and I walked home and I drank my coffee and I talked to my counselor, and we had a very long, healthy discussion, and I made choices that have helped me move in a better path. But I know people that, when confronted with that, went back. It was too hard. And, I just think people need to know is, we love you, we care about you. We want to help you get on a path where you have care and compassion for the good of who you are. And when you don't think you have self-worth and you don't feel that you're good, know that there are people out there that believe in you and care.
So, Dr. Bill, I'm going to bring up an image. I brought it up just a second ago, but I want to bring up this image because I want you to look at it, because it's exactly what it's kind of an illustration of what I've heard from you today, and also what a lot of times kids go through when they have like perfectionism, and which is not a bad thing, because it's a great thing. You became one of the greatest in the world. I mean, you had a dad that pushed you and pushed you and pushed you. But I find a lot of times what people focus on is the top of the triangle, which is the least amount of space. And this is massive. And so that skill set is just the action. What can I do to prove to my dad, to my whatever. There's very few people that get to the sides of the triangle, which is, it says mindset. And the mindset is just your intentions, right? And so, but then there's even an elite few, and I want to congratulate you on this, is you're going to the bottom of the triangle, the foundation, which is the heart set. And you're going to, like, you're really exploring this part, which is your belief system. So belief system, heart set, mindset, intention, skill set is actions. But so many times we flip this upside down and we teeter because we place so much emphasis on my skills, on what I do, all these things. You've seemed to transcend and be able to find that. How do you help a person that maybe is young in their career, that hasn't gone through the things that you're going through, to say to them, hey guys, you don't have to go through that if we focus in on the stars that you see above the fishing as opposed to catching the fish?
Right. I think what you have to get people to work on is, we focus on skill set because that's the outcome measure, and it's a very easy measurable. Intrinsic values and self-worth has no measurement. And it requires self-reflection in a way that can be very hard, because you have to look at yourself and be, am I in the place? And the other is, you have viewed your parents as your life coach. Well, your parents probably are fucked up in some ways. And all they're doing is passing the traumas from their parents onto you. Rarely do the parents break the cycle. I mean, that's when I had to go through this a couple of years ago. My relationship with my sons got way better. And one of my sons has a lot of challenges. And part of it was we didn't care about outcome anymore. If you're working hard, great. He's like, well, what if I don't go to college? I don't care. It's like, yes, you do, Mom, and do. And I'm like, for you, Ryan, I don't care. I love you. You do what you want to do. I'll be proud of you. You just need to figure out a way to take care of yourself. That's all I care about. And I'm here for you, and I love you no matter what. And I think for younger people, you could talk about the tiger moms, right? But you get so focused on skill set because it's so measurable, and it's what your parents and those around you are measuring you by. What you really want to do is, do I feel I'm a good person? Do I feel that the skill set I'm developing supports the value set that I believe in? And to really break the cycle to be successful, what I would tell you is, stop, take a day, put the phone down, go for a walk, hike, play music, whatever your personal thing is. And when you're done with that, grab a piece of paper and write down, here are you can make it goals or values, I don't care, pick one. Here are my 3 professional values or goals. Think hard, you only get 3. And prioritize them. If being the CEO is more important than making $10 million, great. When push comes to shove, remember that, because you got to pick, because you're prioritizing what you value. Okay? So do those 3. Then take 3 personal values or goals and order those 3. Well, my goal is I want to be able to run a marathon. My goal is I'd like to read a book twice a month, or whatever that is. And then prioritize that. I want to be a better partner to my wife or my husband or whoever, your whatever partner, get it correct. And prioritize those so that when you're in an argument or you've got to make a decision, you've upfront sort of designed, this is what matters. Then take the 3 professional and the 3 personal and prioritize them. When push comes to shove, which one would I pick? Then lead your life that way. Because what the skill set people are always going to pick is work, profession, and outcome, or whatever narcissist thing. And you're not going to do it because you're a narcissist and a bad person. You're going to do it because that's how you were programmed to believe. I spent a lifetime picking work, destroying my persondom, destroying my marriage, hurting my kids, because it was ingrained in me that work was the priority, and it should always be my priority. And the other stuff would just take care of itself. And when I went through this thing a couple years ago, what I had to realize is, whoa, did I get that wrong? Now, fortunately for me, my wife, we made it. We're still together by sheer work, grit, determination, a lot of other things, and we're probably going to make it. But that really is what happens. And so the earlier you can get to the, what did you call it? The
Heart set.
Heart set. The earlier you can get to heart set and build that foundation, that then leads to mindset, because then you can purposefully practice on the things that support your heart set. And then once you start doing that, the skill set will develop from it. So your permit's perfect, but you gotta flip in your mental space as early as you can. What is my heart set? What is my personal values? What do I want to prioritize? And then build up from that. Because otherwise, if you start with skill set, you'll be a 55-year-old world famous interventional cardiologist who cannot stand themselves and doesn't know how to exist.
I mean, think about this metaphorically too with you, because obviously this is what you do. You work on the heart. There's so many people that are looking on the outside. What can I do? Like, what can I do today? But you're dealing with the health of their heart. And if the health of their heart isn't there, then their mind is going to go at some point, and then they're not going to be able to do the actions that they take. Right? So,
yeah, I mean, it's 40. We did a study on what I do is this chronic occlusion, these vessels that can't be treated situation. 42% of those people are depressed, and opening the artery cures the depression. Think about that.
Can you say it again and
so
take us through?
So there's a disease state called chronic total occlusion. Somebody has a blocked artery, doesn't provide normal blood flow, and they get told it cannot be treated. So they have to live with the symptoms and the consequences of that. And if you do academic studies of depression scales, 42% of those people are clinically depressed. And if we open them and you repeat the depression scale, the cure rate of their depression is higher than the drugs used to treat depression.
So it literally is a heart problem
Leading to a brain problem.
And then leading to an action problem, because what are the things that we don't understand that we're doing on a normal day-to-day basis that you're looking at and saying, just in our lifestyle and our culture, that you're saying you're going to be my patient later on?
Yeah. I hate to tell everybody it's the things that you know but you don't do. It's don't smoke, and marijuana is smoking and it affects you. If you take it, it's different, but it also can cause heart disease. Daily exercise really matters. Keeping your weight under control, which means controlling what you eat, really matters. And manage your stress, because stress really matters. And so it's the fundamental simple things. If you're overweight, you're going to come see me someday. If you eat nothing but, Krispy Kremes and Popeyes, you're going to come see me someday. If you smoke, you're going to come see me someday. If you sit on a couch, sit in your office, you don't work out, you never hike, bike, get cardiac exercise, you're going to be more likely to see me. And so what you need to do is earlier, don't wait. Well, I'll deal with it when I'm 50 because I'm invincible at 25. Nope. What you're doing right now is going to affect the 50-year-old version of you. So like we talked about with the heart set, you need to make the physical set happen earlier because that will help you avoid, and you're never going to avoid. I mean, again, if you live long enough, you're going to die of heart disease or cancer. I always joke, my job is to make you die of cancer. But the key in all of this is what you want is there's a bad term called health span. But what you want is you want to be able to be physically active, doing the things you want to do as long as you possibly can. And then when you can't, you want to die as quick as you can. So, perfect world, you lived to 85 and on your 85th birthday, you went skiing and you did a hike and then you dropped dead that night. Like that's the perfect life, right? What you don't want to do is, well, I had a heart attack at 75. I got a heart failure. I'm on a bunch of drugs. I can barely walk. I'm on oxygen. I need a wheelchair to get around. And that's how you live the last 10 years of your life. Like that's terrible. So the actions you take right now are going to affect that 75-year-old version of you. So the stuff you put in the bank today, just like money, if you put money in when you're 25, at 75, you're going to be better off. If you put effort into your physical bank now, it will have benefits in the long run. If you put money or you put effort into your heart self now, it'll give you benefits down the road.
My pops would always say to me, Doc, that there was 3 dogs in life, right? And so he broke it down in 3. He said, your personal, your professional, your financial, and you can add whatever dogs you want. But he said, whichever dog you feed is going to be a bigger dog, and then when they get in a fight, that dog is going to win. And so when you've gone through as much as you have, and it was, 18 months ago that the journey kind of began, the journey to better?
Yeah, it's actually 2 years. It was September of 21. So I'm just about 2 years and a couple months.
Okay, so 2 years. 2 years on this journey. It's a puppy.
Yep, it's a baby.
We got a couple other years into another process and another perfectionism and going after the action and stuff like that. How do you not relapse into that lifestyle?
Oh, it's hard. It's like anything. It's every day. I my counselor made me come up with a mantra. So every morning I get up and say, I am a good and worthy man. And when things are going bad for me, I am a good and worthy man. And I have to repeat that to myself because when I started, I didn't think I was a good and worthy person. Mm. And at times I still don't. And so I have to tell myself, I am a good and worthy person. And what motivates me is I don't ever want to feel like I felt back then. And I don't want to, there's a thing called the 4 agreements. And I don't want to live my life with regret. And so, the 4 agreements are impeccable words. Try to speak so that you don't have to regret what you say. And I'm notorious. My whole career, I've said stuff, God, I wish I'd never said. I was such a mean, bully, angry dude. Got me where I got, but, probably not leaving a nice trail. The second is don't take it personal. And it's really hard not to take stuff personally, but it's a problem because when you take it personal, you get defensive. The third one is don't make assumptions. And so we tend to start assuming. So we assume what others think, and then that spirals in our head, and we start these really bizarre spirals. All of it could be ended with, what did you really mean? Can I ask it? My wife and I work on this now. Can I ask a clarifying question? Because I don't think I understand what you said. My lawyer gave me that one. It came up, and it's becoming like a really, can I have a clarifying question? I don't think I understand what you're saying. And then the last one is, is do your best. And what you have to accept is your best is different every day. And that doesn't mean it's not your best. And so I've been working on my 4 agreements. But the key is you have to every day tell yourself, I'm going to be this version of me. And when you feel yourself start to slip, you have to have a mantra, a faith, an action, but you have to have some foundational piece that prevents you from going back. When I went through this, what I told people, it was really hard because of what my wife had said and because of what was going on with work, I had no professional foundation anymore because what I thought was my profession and what I wanted got blown apart. So I had no touchstone there to hold on to. The same as my wife wanted to leave me. So that relationship has zero foundational piece. And you start listening what she was thinking for the last 10 years, you're like, oh my God. So there's no foundation. So you're just falling, right? That's why the December, I'm falling. I don't know what to hold on to. And eventually when you hit bottom, right, you're no longer falling, you've hit something. Well, you have to use that as the thing to push up off of and start to move forward. And that has to become your new foundation of, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to live that experience. So I'm going to build a different, stronger foundation so that I have, in my world, 4 pillars. And each of those pillars, I'm going to work really hard to keep equal. So spiritual, intellectual, emotional, and physical. And what I want to make sure is if I'm feeding one of them too much, I need to go pay attention to the other one so I stay in balance.
How does a relationship with God work when you essentially a lot of times in your work were playing the role of God?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we're not God and we're not playing the role of God. And the quicker you get over that, the better you're going to be. So no, I'm not in control of that. That's too big. Whatever higher power is out there, whatever belief system you want to have, you're in control of your actions. You're in control of your faith. I'm a bit of an Eastern philosopher and I like karma, but you're on a journey and whatever that path is great. But the most important thing to remember is God, karma, faith, spirituality is about compassion, right? If you're killing people because God told you to kill people, there's no God on earth that feels that way. So please stop. Please stop pretending.
Yeah.
Okay? You're killing people because you're an evil person and you're doing the wrong thing. We need compassion. I watch physicians crush other physicians because they're so insecure and they're competitive. And it's like we've lost all compassion. And the business of healthcare has made it impossible for physicians and nurses to be compassionate for patients because the people who are now our bosses, there aren't patients. It's dollar signs. They're just a widget. And they pay us based on widgets. And so you have to fight against the system to have compassion. It's crazy.
Well, it's incredible because you are a maverick even in that sense, right? And so, you know, in all senses of the word, what would fix healthcare in our country if we weren't have to deal with, like, because people will say, oh, this would be fixed, but it would never work because of blah, 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 blah. If we took away all the blah, 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 and we just said this would be an answer and help to be able to move it forward in healthcare, because it is challenging, right? One of my friends, his son had brain cancer when he was 12 years old. And they said basically 3 to 6 months to live. Well, this man happened to be a very, 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 like, ridiculously successful guy. So he had the finances to be able to go all over the world and spend millions of dollars and be able to get his son cured. And his son is still alive now, 15, 20 years later. Not everyone has that opportunity.
Yep.
So how, like, from the true maverick mentality and mindset, what could fix that?
So the problem in medicine is competency, innovation, and managing failure. So none of the academic training programs have any meaningful competency to what people come out with a skill set. And once you're out, nobody is put in a situation where they have to keep practicing to get better. There's economic reasons for that. There's legal reasons. So you really want to fix it? One, get the lawyers out of healthcare. Malpractice doesn't save a single life. It just makes billions of dollars for insurance companies, for attorneys, for the judicial system. It has never saved a single damn life. Matter of fact, it's hurt people because people are so afraid they no longer can do their job. And they order a bunch of ridiculous tests to prevent getting sued. So get the lawyers out of healthcare. Number two, hold physicians meaningfully accountable to innovating, which means every year you should be required to go to a 3-day thing in your specialty, paid for by your employer, to be brought up to date on what's current. And you should be verbally quizzed, and you should have to review and examine information. And it's not pass or fail. It's, we're going to make sure you know what is up to date. And we want you to change your practice to stay up to date. Just like the airline industry. 3, we're going to pay people a salary. I am not going to make you competitive for a patient. I'm not going to make you paid by the number of widgets that you do, and I'm going to value those widgets on some completely arcane, made up, ridiculous, dumb thing. And lastly, I'll get insurance companies who are now providing healthcare because they tell you what you can and can't do, but they don't want to take responsibility. I used to do this. I don't do it anymore because I don't deal with pre-auths because it annoys me. But the insurance company, I get on the phone and somebody be like, well, I'm not sure we can do this test, and I'm not sure they can do it. I said, great, what's your name? What do you mean? I'm like, what is your name? So they give me their name. What is your specialty? They give me their specialty. I said, and then they're like, well, why do you want to know? I said, because I'm going to give it to their attorney, because you are now practicing healthcare without a license. So every pre-auth that's given is actually someone practicing medicine without a license. Why did we give them that control? And all it is insurance companies' ways to stall something occurring because they can make more money off the investment of that while they're waiting to pay it out. there's a couple others you could do that would make big savings, but they're much more controversial. But those are the big ticket items. The reason I'll tell you that this is highly unlikely to change is, if you think about it, healthcare is about 20% of the GDP. About half of all healthcare dollars come via government in one way, shape, or form. So that's 10%. Realize that most of the people in Washington are attorneys. So from the medical malpractice stuff, who's paying the bills? So the other is, to make a meaningfully cost reduction, you're going to have to reduce healthcare costs, say 5%. Well, that's a 1% reduction in the GDP. What politician is going to vote for 1 million people to lose their job and a 1% reduction in GDP? Nobody. So to effectively get it to improve is going to require people, the patients, to have a revolution to say, fix this, vote this better. Because do you know, just like your friend, do you know what the most important thing is for your healthcare outcome? Which doctor you go to. And how do you have any idea, other than you like them? And I could show you the data. The more you like your doctor, the worse your outcome. It's a true story. Harvard School of Public Health.
Doc, what qualifies a person to be an innovator? Because not every, like, say, I trust, like, now being friends with you, I trust you to innovate. But there's friends of mine that I have that I'm like, dude, stick to the plan, man. Stick to the plan. The rules are there for you. But is everyone an innovator, or should there be a qualification for it?
It's not about, I would say this, I'll tell you, there's a difference between being a Top Gun test pilot and flying a commercial jet and flying a private plane. So what I would tell you is, not everybody needs Maverick and Top Gun, but you do need a commercial pilot. I want to see our profession held to that standard of competency. And I can tell you right now, if you had a heart problem, the first thing you're going to do is you're either going to call Paul or you're going to call me, because we know people who are competent. I mean, if you want to, if you're here, I'll be controversial because it's what I do. So there are a bunch of devices in my specialty, and I can only talk about my little world of interventional cardiology, the big syllables. People who put in stents, put in heart valves, all done through little holes. Okay. If you ask the salespeople, so there's what are called clinicals and there's local salespeople, they go around and they see every interventional cardiologist that exists because they're working, they get to go to all these hospitals. My wife used to do this job. So they get to see what's going on. Okay. If you ask them what percentage of the physicians you call on would you let treat a family member, guess what the percentage is?
I'm scared.
Should be
What's the percentage?
10%.
So 90% of the people that they see, they wouldn't let touch their family.
Nope. There's the ugly little secret people don't know. And listen, I'm going to get yelled at again by my profession because everyone, well, it's not me, but that's something called the Dunning-Kruger curve, right? Those with the least skill have the highest confidence level in their ability. And then as you gain experience, you actually lose confidence. It's called the Valley of Despair. This is a human psychology thing. It's called the Valley of Despair. And the Valley of Despair is where you start to fail and have bad outcomes and bad things. And in our profession, we just annihilate you. And so you never go past the Valley of Despair. So to get to expertise is very unique because you need a unique personality and you need a unique culture to let you get to expertise.
Doc, what are you innovating right now that you're testing, you're trying, you don't know if it's going to work, but you're pushing that 5, 6, 10 years down the line, we're probably going to be like, oh, that's normal.
Well, let me give you the mind blower. I'm not. And I'll tell you why. I am 55. I am not going to get better at my job. My eyes aren't as good. My hands aren't as good. My risk tolerance is changing as I get older. My energy level is getting different. So what I'm doing is, my job is not to innovate. My job is to build cultures to let the next generation innovate and stay out of their way. So what am I doing? I'm working on changing the culture of medicine that embraces failure, learns from complications, not hides from them, wants to improve the minimum competency and innovate at the top end, so that we continue to actually improve outcomes for everybody, not just an elite few that get lucky enough to see the right person in the right place at the right time.
How do you go from being a player? Let's take it back to sports.
Oh God.
The Michael Jordan of the world doesn't turn into a good head coach, right? Not all the time. Now there's the Steve Kerrs of the world, who is a phenomenal shooter and turns into a coach of the greatest team of all time. And we could talk about the Warriors. But when we look at those kind of things, not all great players turn into great coaches, but you seem to have both traits. How can a person transition into that?
Well, so I'm laughing. So a good friend of mine, Tony DiMartini, I don't know if he'll end up listening to this or hear it, but Tony used to joke, Tony was the best teacher of the group of us that built this specialty out. And Tony used to joke, you're Michael Jordan, not Phil Jackson. Stop trying to be Phil Jackson. You suck at it. So I guess part of it was, I did the purposeful practice and work to learn how to be a better coach. And maybe like Phil Jackson, what I had to realize is, it wasn't about browbeating, forcing, bullying, showing off. It was how to be emotive, compassionate, unconditional love, caring, adapting styles for different people to get different results out of different individuals that additively end up higher. And so I guess for me, the last couple of years, my own personal therapy and this journey has helped me learn to become a different type of coach with a different type of approach that is probably going to be more successful than what I was doing before.
What do you say to the person that looks at Dr. Bill now, and obviously you're working on your heart set, you're building that part of it, but they're a young, hard-charging kid that says, well, Dr. Bill, like the way you did it was like this. So I'm going to go do that then. I'm going to go do that because I guess two-part question. What do you say to that kid? And number two, do you think that there's a Dr. Bill Lombardi if your heart set was where it's at now at 25 years old? Do you think that you still do the things and end up in the same place?
So, it's funny. I get asked this question all the time. And I'll give you the response, which is, it doesn't matter. Because I can't go back. The past is full of anxiety, but I can't change the past. Could somebody do it? Sure. Is there another Bill Lombardi out there? No. I don't want him to be Bill Lombardi. Go be the best version of you. If that ends up technically better or changing healthcare in a great way, awesome. But don't be me. Be you. If you have kids, right? It's Kung Fu Panda 3. Be the best panda you can be. Right? You've got kids. You've got to see that movie, right? Be the best panda you can be. You don't have to be somebody else's panda. Just be yours. And what I would tell the 25-year-old is, why do you want to do it? If you can answer that with an authentic, good human value, go, baby, do it. If your answer is just some form of because I have to or because it's expected of me, don't do it. You're gonna end up hating yourself. Don't do it. And what I hope is those young people might learn some of the pitfalls of my journey, right? Smart people learn from their mistakes. Wise people learn from the mistakes of others. So be wise. Learn from my mistakes, make new ones, but don't repeat the same mistakes.
What are you seeing as far as the innovation that, like in the coaching side of it, of encouraging younger physicians to challenge the status quo, to innovate? What are some of the innovations that you're seeing right now that are being tested that you think that are going to kind of, again, become the norm for us in the future? Because if you would have told me, if you would have told my grandmother, who was 42 years old, died of a heart attack, instantly gone. My mom, 62, died of a heart attack. But if you would have told my mom when she was,
I am going to get to know you at some point.
yes, you are. You talk to my mom at 13 and you say, well, there, I could do this little slit and we go through and we do it through the catheter and the size of the hair. She would have, all the people in the world would have thought you were crazy at the time. Sure. What's the crazy right now that's going to be normal in the future?
I wouldn't know. If I knew it, we'd be doing it. That's the joy of the innovation. And it goes back to it's letting the people out there try and fail and don't shoot them, love them. So there's one of my partners is doing some of the craziest, he and a guy from Emory are doing some of the craziest stuff in the heart to try and fix heart valves without opening up people's hearts. And they're doing stuff and they're living the same journey I did. They're getting attacked. People are giving them grief. Bad things are happening. They're learning from it. It's a repeating cycle. So there's lots of cool things coming. What they're going to be, some will end up being really good. Some technology will replace. Some will end up going away because they were bad. My job is right now to change the culture of our profession that allows those people to do it. Because the biggest problem in healthcare is being afraid of getting sued, being afraid of showing I don't know, being afraid of not being good enough, being afraid of the hospital administrators and M&M and QA coming down and saying you're doing a bad job, because we all want to fit a cookie cutter. And that cookie cutter will lead to stagnation and worse outcomes because people will avoid getting better and avoid what needs to get done to actually help most people do better. So the real key is, how do we change the culture of training? How do we change the culture of early career to, instead of telling people, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, be afraid, how do we change it into, yeah, let's try that. Hey, yeah, that's a good idea. Oh, hey, we might want to do this differently because here's why we're where we are. You understand the why, not just, well, I did this because I thought that's what I should do. No, you need to do this because you understand where it came from. And if you know where it came from, then you can innovate off of it.
I think the part that when people innovate, it's one thing. Then when people adapt to that thing and use it, so that being able to adapt immediately to the thing and move. Yeah. How does a person foster that part? Because there's a lot of people who can innovate, they think about, and then they get into the analyzation, paralyzation part where they're like, yeah, but that's a good idea, but, and then they stop. How can we foster the adaptability?
Right. Well, I think that goes back to the self-worth discussion, right? Because, paralysis by analysis, right? Perfectionism leads to paralysis. People, if you're a perfectionist, you can't make decisions. And that's a problem. And the reason you can't is because you can't forgive yourself for being wrong. And so what you need for people, and this is what's the problem in medicine, is you get blasted for being wrong. You get to go to court for malpractice for being wrong. You get attacked for being different because it makes other people feel less. So I think the important thing for not just medicine is for you in general is, I'm a good and worthy person. I am trying to get better. And in the process of getting better, I am going to fail. And in the process of failure, I need to realize, did I fail because I'm not 6'10", 330 pounds? Or did I fail because I don't hold the ball right? And if I'm not holding the ball right, who can I go teach me to hold the ball right in a way that is effective for me to learn it so that I can get that skill and move forward?
And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Dr. Bill, is as I'm hearing you, perfectionism, like I've dealt with this word a lot. Perfectionism is just insecurity manifested a lot of times because you're afraid to fail. And also another one, this may sound oversimplification, but every time I've dealt with a perfectionist, they're just really, really slow. And when I say that, because they're not willing to be quick to action because they're scared that the outcome is not going to turn out the way that they want it to be, which is going to cause them to have to say that they're wrong, which ultimately from your formula, if they did it fast, they did it wrong, then they would be able to learn, create the next procedure, free themselves to innovate more, and then adapt into that scenario.
Yeah, well, you just said what high tech, that's what tech is about, right? All technical innovation is beta test, bring out a new thing every 6 to 12 months, beta test it, learn from it, bring out the next one. Healthcare is we do something, we wait 20 years, and then maybe we do the next thing. And you're right, it's overthinking, right? One of my skills is I don't have a frontal lobe. When I'm in the lab, I don't think, I do. And for whatever reason, that's a unique skill set because, and like Alex Honnold, right? You have to be able to control fear so that you don't panic. And fear can lead to overanalysis because you're afraid to make the next step. And so to overcome that, you either have to practice it so you're no longer afraid, or you have to have courage to just go for it.
How important is giving someone the permission to try? Like, as I hear you talk about it, like,
huge. My center we have 2 people who are doing things that are against the rules of medicine. One is doing it in what we call structural heart. The other is doing it in where he's fixing chronically blocked up blood vessels in the lungs to help people feel better and do better. And the way he's doing it is against everything anybody's ever done. And the reason they get to do that in our world is we built a culture that says, yeah, we want to do that. And when things go wrong and we know things are going to go wrong, and we talk to people up front, we know we're pushing the envelope, but we're doing it because you don't have much choice. And we then don't go in and say, you shouldn't have done that. See, you got a bad outcome. You're a bad person. We're like, okay, what do we take away from this? Was this a bad plan? Was this bad execution? Was this the wrong anatomy to do it on? Was this the wrong patient to do it on? Let's learn and then evolve. And then do that process over and over again as fast and as long as we can. And then as we get to a place where it's more maturing, teach it.
Do you find that you're getting the same kind of pushback when you're talking about culture that you did when you were doing more procedure?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What's interesting is, though, it's probably going to have more profound effect on my profession than any of the technical stuff I did.
Why don't they just give you the key then? Why don't they just say, like, I'm giving you the scepter? You know what I'm saying? Like, why? Like, it's incredible because when you talk about it, and I'm not, for lack of oversimplifying, And I have the tendency to do this at times. But when you look at what you just took us down, is that you don't fall in love with the system, that the system is there as a list of your screw-ups. Yeah? You put it there, put the rules in place because, hey, this happened, but I'm going to give you the freedom to make new procedures, which is just another screw-up that you do. And then I'm going to give you the freedom to innovate and adapt immediately to it. And then let's run the thing again because we can't fall in love with the system. Otherwise, what'll happen is the people will go by the wayside. And your whole, like what I'm hearing from you is that you are putting the people in the forefront, and then the ancillary parts are the systems, are the things, and they will come.
Yeah, you have to realize though, the people running the current culture are empowered because they use that system to be successful. Right? So, right, culture change runs one of two ways, top down or bottom up. Healthcare is unlikely to have any effectual culture change top down because those in power got their power from the system. So what I'm trying to lead is a revolution. I want the people who are frustrated with the system to have the opportunity to start learning the soft skills to push back against the elite.
Now, what kind of conversations do you and your wife have because that's a large thing. That's a massive, you just said basically you want to change the world of medicine, right? When you're sitting down to dinner with your wife, does your wife kind of be like, why don't you just peel back, bro, and have your potatoes? You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny. My wife is in healthcare education, so we talk a little bit about it. The other is, this doesn't consume me like the other one did, right? I went fly fishing in British Columbia for a week. I'm down in San Diego at a meeting. Do you know what I'm doing at the meeting? I'm going for a run this afternoon, and I'm going to go for a walk on the beach. I'm not going to the meeting. And I'm not going to sit and get a bunch of fight with a bunch of people that aren't going to listen because their faith is different than my faith. The difference now is I'm not going to do this with the same intensity because I don't want to ruin me. I'm happy to have the conversations. I'm happy to lead the discussions. I'm happy to do it on my terms, but I'm not going to do it at the detriment of myself. And that's the difference. That's why, my wife and I went to Venice for 4 days before a meeting in Europe, and we just hung out and talked. And when we went to Nice for the meeting, I went to about 3 sessions, and then we took off and ran on the beach and went to a nice dinner and we went to Colorado and did a mountain biking, hiking, and took her fishing. And we're trying to work on the things that bond us, which is usually a lot of outdoor activities. And that means separating away because that value has to be a priority over the other stuff. So, I got asked I've got a friend who's got a meeting in Hawaii, and he's like, can you come to this meeting? And then another guy said, well, we want you to do a live case. I'm in Colorado skiing that week. No, before I'd have figured out how to get on a plane, get there, get back, do all the stupid stuff. I was like, you know what? No, I'm good. I'm going skiing in Colorado. It's my week. Sorry. I don't have any FOMO. I don't feel like I'm failing. I feel I'm going to do what I can, the best that I can, but I'm not going to sacrifice me again for that.
Wow. Well, Doc, I started the podcast for people exactly like you, right? And when I say this, you're going to be like, the absolute best in the world at what you do. But for me, it's not about what you do. It's about who you are. And I wanted to expose my son, Maddox, and my daughter, McKenna, to the icons of the world and not have them worship idols. because there's times where, you know, my brother is actually a physician in Nebraska. I sent him out the flyer or the thumbnail for YouTube telling him that you're going to be on. So he was excited, and I would love for you to meet him someday. My other brother's an attorney in Vegas. And what I've always wanted my kids to realize is that when you see these people who do these phenomenal things, like their uncles or like now Uncle Bill, it's not about what they do, it's about who they are. And so what advice would you have for Maddox and McKenna? And if you could use both their names and call yourself Uncle Bill, it would be awesome.
Well, Maddox and McKenna, Uncle Bill would tell you, one, don't look for role models, or actually don't look for models who fill a role. Okay? Be a role model. So look for people who their actions demonstrate their values in a way that resonate with you so that you can model that behavior. Number two, remember, failure doesn't mean you're a bad person or that you didn't do your best. Failure is an opportunity to learn and improve. And the last one is, the only person you ever need to judge you is you. Don't let what your mom and dad want you to be the definition of who you want to be. Don't let their motivations become your motivations. You become the best version of yourself and keep striving to become that model and fill that role in a way that feels good and successful to you.
Dr. Bill, it has been an absolute pleasure. I'm gonna force you to be my friend for the rest of your life, and I do have an ask for you. Is two. One, I want you on the show more. I'd love to have you on the show again. This was, I mean, not only enlightening, but your spirit, your vibe of who you are. I told you that right when we started recording, and it was before we went live. The way that you make other people feel, because, I mean, the man that you are and the things that have transpired in your career and the things that you've been able to accomplish could honestly, I mean, make most people shut down. And you shine the light on everyone else. The other thing is we have a live version of the podcast, which is called the Vibe Room. It's in a 60s speakeasy jazz club. So the next one we're doing is in Salt Lake City. And we do them here in Carlsbad, and then we do them in Salt Lake City.
You realize my son lives in Salt Lake City.
Okay, yes. And the December 29th is one. Now,
Sure.
I would love to be able to have you live, to be able to interview you there at the Vibe Room.
Sure.
So, I mean, I know we're going to have to look at logistics, all the things like that. But the reason why I say it is because for all of you listening out there, I want to thank you. I want to thank everyone listening, sharing, commenting. If you're on YouTube, you need to subscribe right now because my son thinks I'm cooler. He's 12. I need subs. That's what he tells me. The other thing is so many people ask to be able to meet people like Dr. Bill and meet him in person and be able to be around him, have a discussion. And we have that. We created it with the Vibe Room. And so the Vibe Room is on December 29th. It's in Salt Lake City at the Edison House. Unbelievable speakeasy. It is probably one of the coolest venues that I've ever experienced. So we're going to be doing that. And so, Dr. Bill, if it works out, I would love... it would be an honor to be able to have you. We've got a house up there in Park City, and so we're going to be there for 2 weeks, and it's going to be amazing. But I tell you, the things that you talked about today, and not only that, your heart, we need more of in this world, man.
Thank you for that. I, as you know, I'm not good at taking praise. I appreciate it. I'm doing my best.
Well, you're doing amazing, man. You're doing incredible. And I tell you, I won't wait 26 years in our relationship to compliment you every single day, every single time I get the opportunity to be able to do it. But again, I want to thank every single person out there that's been rocking with the podcast since the beginning. We didn't do any paid promotions, anything like that, and got in the top 1% globally. And I appreciate every single one of you. Share it with your friends. Dr. Bill, you are an incredible, incredible human being, and I can't wait to have you on the show again.
Thanks, Kelly. I look forward to it. I'm excited to meet you in person and hang out. Say hi to McKenna.
Maddox.
McKenzie.
Maddox and McKenna.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Yeah, I gotta file that away. So
Well, I hope we get to hang out because we want to, not because we need to. So, Dr. Bill, that's what I'm talking about. But I appreciate you. If you could stay on too here for a second, it would be awesome. But you're officially off the hot seat.